Hello again. Today I am making a card with Vampire Lestat from Tickled Pink Stamps. And because of all of the folds in his cape, I thought this could be a good video to make and kind of share how I create the lighting effect as it goes over rippling fabric. And again, we're going to be using blacks, so that works into kind of the series I've been doing. This time I'm using the neutrals, and I'm also going to be doing some reds too. Real quick, I wanted to show you what he looks like originally. He's a vampire image, really cute. He just came out. But for the card that I'm making, I want to kind of transform him into the Phantom of the Opera. So I just, wiped away part of his face with a baby wipe, and then I just, with a multi-liner, Copic multi-liner, I drew in the mask and traced back in part of his eye. And, okay, so I'm going to get started coloring. I just didn't want anybody to be confused, like, oh, where's that stamp? It's like, maybe someday, hopefully. Okay. So I'm going to start with the black part of his cape, and I'm going to start with my lightest color, the N5. And I've established that my light source is going to be coming in from the left. I know his body and everything looks like it's facing the right, and I said in the last video, when I have a directional character, I have the light source kind of hitting their face. But I'm following more his eye line in this one. Because his eye line is taking me up and to the left, I wanted my light source to be coming from up and to the left, and that's just, again, personal preference, and you decide where you want it coming from. Okay, so the outside of his cloak is going to be black, and I'm just going to start laying in my N5, and the darkest part, what's going to be the darkest at the end. Leaving what's going to be the lightest white here at first. That's the way it works for me. It lets me kind of map out the shadows. It's just how I visualize it, and it's how it works for me to do it. So that's what I'm doing. And then you just kind of attack these folds from the side furthest away from our light source, pulling the color toward it. We're not worrying about it being pretty or really blending at this point. Just getting the color on. And I'm going to flip it around, pull the color up here. Okay, and that kind of dips down in there, so I want to darken that up. And that's raised, so it's getting more light hitting it, so leave that white. And then work on this last one over here. And the outside of his elbow. And up here on his shoulder. Because this is that side furthest away from the light, most of it's going to end up pretty black. Okay. Now I'm going to my N7 and just repeating again, just getting the color on there quickly, kind of scribbling it in. Not quite as far out as I did the N5. Just establishing all our shadows. Because we got a lot of them being created with the bends and creases of the fabric of the cape. Get in there. That side. Okay. And yes, I keep moving them around. I just have an easier time getting the color on. I'm not afraid to whip him around a bit, get him where I need him. Now to my N9. And this is where we're really going to start darkening it up. Kind of, you see I'm coming out here, that's because his hand is underneath that, holding it, kind of creating its own little bump out. So that's why I'm taking the dark kind of in a little oval shape around that area. You're always kind of thinking of the mass underneath the fabric, the material of the clothing, when you're working with creating the look of shading and shadows. It's like, what solid object is underneath there creating that, and where does it kind of fall beneath there? And I'm not being super careful again. I'm fussy cutting him out, and that's also why I am not going to be doing anything with the big tall collar. That's going to get snipped off, actually. I don't want that for him as the Phantom. But if you're going to be using an image as is, oh, this is the 100, be a lot more careful around the outside edges, because it's, even with a blender pen, it's hard to push blacks and dark grays completely out. But since I am snipping them out, it's not a huge deal in some of these areas. And I'm just not even a lot, the 100, just kind of flicking it in certain areas back here. And then I'm going to work my way back down. I'm not going to worry about the N9. I go to the N7. And this is where I start pulling over and blending them. Oh, and I'm using Copic X-Press It cardstock. Whenever I'm going to be fussy cutting an image out, that's usually my go-to out of the two that I prefer, just because it's easier to cut out than the paper tray ink cardstock. But I really like the looks I get with both. The Copic X-Press It is a lot thinner, not as heavy a weight as the paper tray ink, but I like them both. Those are my two go-tos. And we're just blending those colors together now, those grays. And kind of pulling, always pulling around, trying to create that dimension. It's, again, because this is kind of that cone shape thing, so if we can do it, you know, in little flicks that kind of wrap around that object, it's going to look more convincing in the end. Okay. Now finish it off with my N5 and start from this direction and blend in. And because these areas are so small, it's more back to a circle motion, the traditional circle motion, instead of flicking. Because we just got small areas here that we're now finishing off. And I already did his suit and the shoes, and I don't know if you can tell the difference in the video or not. The shoes, I actually used the C5, 7, and 9, so I get a little bit of contrast. They're not matchy-matchy with the clothes that he's wearing, just because I want them to be made from a different material, like they're the black leather patent shoes. And I'll probably put a little bit of Secura glaze pen over them too, just to give them a little bit of shine and really help make them stand out from the rest of the black that's going to be going on in this image, because it's going to be a lot of black. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry. and kind of hit the little bit of black that's going to be on this side over here. I'm actually leaving that red because it's kind of the underside of his cloak. But these little bits here are going to be the black side, so I'm hitting those. Okay. Now my N7. And these little, this is going to be the darkest where it's folded in on itself the most. So you just kind of follow that. To the N9. Again, where it's folding. Just a smidge of 100 in those darkest areas. And back down with the N7. And finally the N5. Okay. Now this side, since he's had a little bit of time to dry, I'm just going to redefine some of those creases. So I'm going to go with my N7 and flick back out. And this is again where you start deciding how gray versus how black you want your final garment or image to look at the end. Because if you want something, more of a charcoal dark gray, I would have left it there. But since we're going for that really black cloak, I want to lay some more shadow in. And the 9 and 9. Go. Pull it towards me. Pull it around that. And then just back to my N7. Hopefully this will get me as dark as I want it to be. And one little final, just smoothing out these little lines here with the N5. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Much happier with that now. Okay, so now I'm done with the, oops, I forgot this guy here. Okay, done with the blacks, and I'm going to jump to the reds. And today I'm using a really dark combination, R37, R46, R59, and E18. I'm going to start with the 37, and it's the same principle as we just did with the black. We're going to follow our light direction coming this way, so parts of the folds that are further away from that light source I'm going to start getting the color on there, leaving those dark. And then this is actually dipped in, so most of this is going to be dark. It's not getting the light hitting it directly, like these outside folds. So we're just going to get our color on there. And just be careful when you're working with reds up around other colors, because they do want to travel. Okay. So we got another fold, so we're going to pull it towards that light source. Leaving a little bit of white because that's going to be my lightest area at the end. Okay, so we got another dip in, so all of this pretty much is going to be darker. Under here where the fabric's folding in on itself, darker. Okay, so now this is a bend out towards the light, so we're leaving some of it white. Which creates another dip in, so we're filling that in. And one more bend out there. Okay. And this, it's just all going to get some red on it, because it's far enough away from that light source back behind his body now too, that it's not going to get a whole lot of really strong light. Now to my R46, repeating, what we've been doing, just not as far out as the 37. Filling this in. Now, I'm not going to fill the whole thing in. This part actually is going to be a little bit lighter than the part that's closest to the crease that's actually casting the shadow. So I'm just going to lay the color in kind of on this side, which is, for the bump out part further away from the light, and then right next to it is the crease part underneath that's going to have a lot of the light blocked from it. I'm probably not describing that very well, but hopefully you can kind of pick it up by seeing what I'm doing. So again, where the fabric's bending in on itself, going to be the darkest, and where it's right there, darkest. A little bit lighter over here because the light is reaching that kind of indent of the fabric a bit more on that side. Dark over here. Dark right next to it in that crease, but a little bit lighter as we come out. And dark back here. And then we're going to go dark back here as well. Leg casting kind of a shadow back there. Now I'm going to my R59. Just getting a little bit darker each time. Oops. That you want to be careful of if you weren't cutting the image out, because again, reds, just like blacks, hard to push around with your blender pen. But I'm okay because he is getting cut out anyway. That side of that fold, and I'm kind of outlining the arm because it's just going to cast a shadow on everything back up there. And then on that side of the inner crease, it's going to be darker. And this side of the bump out here, and on the inner crease there, against the body. That leg's casting a shadow. And then it's just naturally darker down here, away from the light source. Okay. Now, I don't stop there. For most of my reds, to make them look really rich, I actually like to add in browns. The Eves usually, in this family here, the E07, E08, E09, E19 and 18 all look really good with different reds depending on which reds you're working with. Because I'm going with really dark reds down here with the 37, 46, 59. I'm going with E18, which is the darkest of the browns that I usually pair up with reds. And it just, I think it makes it look really rich and really gorgeous when you add some brown in there. And so we're going to take our E18, just reinforce those darkest areas with it. And I just think this makes it look really velvety and really pretty. Because they're kind of the red browns anyway, so it works. Even though they're not the same family technically, they'll kind of play nicely together. See how that's really making it pop now? Just a very cool touch. Get that crease down here. Get that little crease a bit. Drama, 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 which I think the Phantom would approve of. Down here. Back behind his leg. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to work our way back down with our 59. And this is where we're going to start blending. We're just pulling over everything we've laid down so far. Following the curve of that fabric as much as we can. And spin it this way so I can pull this way on those inner creases. And this last one here. Okay. To our R46. The strong red's going to brighten it up a bit. Looking pretty good. Pull here. Pull this way. There, get this crease back here behind the legs. Going to stay pretty dark. And finish that off with the R37. Just finally filling in those areas that I left white, blending these together. Circle motions there. Okay. And I have a little bit, so I'm going to let that dry and hit these little areas of red that I left while I was working on that. And this is just where that underside of the cape is kind of folding over, and we're getting a peek of it over here and then up here as well. And we're just following the same back to R46. And let's see, this is going to be dark here. And it's dark where it's folding over. It's actually going to be kind of dark here too where it's folding away. Then to the R59. There, folding in on itself. It's kind of pulling it here. Our drama, E18. So pretty. So pretty. Okay. We'll blend it back down, R59. R46. And R37. Okay, so now that this has had time to dry, I can look at it and see if I'm happy. I think I'm actually going to take my R46 and I want to help reinforce this bumping out, this being darker in this crease, and this bumping out in this direction, and darken up this crease, bump out here. That's not bad under there. And then I'm just going to darken up, got his shirt a little bit, that crease there. There we go. R59. Just back here. And right there. Follow these lines. Give them a little bit of an outline. Okay. Looks pretty good to me. Let that dry, go in with my colorless blender and knock that little bit out of his sleeve, but he'll be okay other than that. And that is a finished Phantom. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Bye.